So can we give a couple of practical tips, since we've been like here talking about the problem, and I think people can really relate, especially to that piece you just described of not having these clean relationships. There's so much residue. What can people do? I was thinking, as you were talking, I was thinking of a very dear friend, Chris Carlson, who was married to, remember Don't Sweat the Small Stuff? Richard Carlson. You're probably too young. So Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, Richard Carlson, he sold millions of copies of this book. Like, I remember my mother having it when I was a teenager, and she was like,
smaller tagline, and it's all small stuff.
Yes.
I'm not that young. I just take his supplements.
That was really good. That was really good. Okay, you got to laugh too when you're talking about death and surrender.
Totally.
So Richard Carlson, he's this amazing man. He was here in Berkeley, and he wrote this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. He wrote like many others along the same lines. I remember my mother was reading it when I was a teenager, and every time I would get into a drama place, she'd be like, "Don't sweat the small stuff. You should read this book." And of course, I wasn't so open to that. I still had an oppositional mind. And I know, hard to believe, hard to believe. So Chris told me this amazing story. Her husband died very tragically on a flight about 5 years ago to New York when he was launching his next book. And he was in his 40s, and it was really devastating. And they had no preparation. They had none of that like graceful surrender. And before he died, he had this really interesting experience where he was working with someone who said to him, if you had 1 hour to live, who are you going to call and what are you going to say? And so Richard Carlson wrote this 37-page letter. I'm getting chills just thinking about this story. He wrote this 37-page letter to his wife about how much she meant to him. And I can't remember the details, like how much longer before he died, but she had this document that he gave to her about his love for her, and it was so extraordinary. I mean, she ended up publishing it because it was such a service to the world. But I want to share some of those ideas, like how can you step into action around these themes that we're talking about? Because we're good at articulating the problem, and I just want to make sure we've got some solutions and some steps.
I think you just nailed it right there. Tell your loved ones every day. Like for me, it's like call your mom, call your wife and tell her you love her. Tell your wife she's beautiful, right? All the things that are just the basics, but don't leave authentic moments for tomorrow, because there's no such thing as tomorrow, right? If you wait for tomorrow, you live an unfulfilled life today. Do those things. Do those things in the moment. And make time for them. And for me, it's a priorities thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they're there. My loved ones are there. I'm going to go out here and hustle with all these jerks at work or whatever it is, right? And we spend time with all these shitty people and engaging in these battles where our loved ones miss us, right? And I think that you got to really recalibrate, prioritize so that you're efficient at work and you spend time with them. And you know me, like this is, you guys, I'll say this right now, I don't work with people I don't like. I love everyone in this living room. This is why I love what I do and enjoy it. Is I only vote my time's the most valuable thing I have, and I vote with my time and I spend it with people that I love engaging with and I enjoy being with, right? And that's a powerful thing because it's enriching. So when my wife shows up later, it's not like, oh, I'm so exhausted, those people sucked. It's like, we've had such a great day. We've had such a great day. Let me share with you like some of the insights that we had and meet my friends. You know what I mean? It's just do good things and surround with good people and message back always. I mean, that's my 2 cents on that one. Five, not nickel.
I think a lot of people say, wouldn't that be nice, right? If they could do that, but the thing is, you can. We all do. Whether we exercise that agency to hang out with people who you like, to spend time with coworkers who you enjoy. I mean, you choose this. I think most of us believe that we don't. That life happens to you, and that's another huge piece because we're all choosing to be here against odds in a lot of cases because we're all way too busy for this. right? Like if you actually look at it logically, that would be the argument that we could easily make to ourselves. But it's really important that we're here. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that this is a choice that you have to make if you want to live this life. And have, at the end of the day, say, this was one of the best days. I spent it with all my friends. And just be gushing to the people around you for the rest of the night. And then that's contagious, right? Like that changes everyone around you.
It does. Yeah. That's so good. That's so good. You know, another way I would frame that is that so many of us have this delusion that we're on this path and we're going to eventually get to that island where it all works out. Yep. A friend of mine went through this coaching program where her mentor talked about that island where it all works out. You know, if I just lose 15 pounds, I'll be on that island. And we think about these external factors that really are not controlling our day. Like we're in charge. It's that inside job again, right? It's the locus of control is internal, and the sooner you step up to it, because it's divine responsibility and it's not always easy, but when you really step up to that internal locus of control, it changes everything. I really appreciate that.
I catch myself sometimes saying, okay, you know what, after I get through this launch, then it's going to be the best. Oh my God, it's going to be so good. November and December, they are going to be amazing months. And November and December get here, and it's just as busy. And I'm like, there's no, you know, you will never get to the place where everything stops, and if you did, it would be boring as hell.
Yes.
If everything stopped and you had succeeded, then what else would you do?
So true.
So in the middle of all the turmoil and craziness, if you could be like, hey, I chose this life, and I started making my October feel like my November should feel. So I was like, you know, even though we're in the middle of October, I am going to feel as happy and as relaxed as this dream place in November that'll never actually happen, because I should be able to do all this and be as relaxed and grateful and just thriving in it, as opposed to waiting for that to happen. And it feels like that's a big challenge, and I'd like to get better at it.
So we're actually in Slowvember now. So Slowvember, I'm going to throw that out as another challenge, another tip. And another one that I heard you guys talking about, and I want to name it maybe in a different way, is to make a choice. Like when you're facing a decision between pleasure or stress, choose pleasure. Like it's so much better for your hormones. It's so much better for your happy brain chemicals. It's such an important part of that agency and the locus of control. So if you're choosing between working with jerks and creating a lot of stress, or hanging out with your friends and having a career that's really crafted around that, choose the pleasure.
Love it.
And I think we live in a world that's filled with stress because, like, stress isn't inherently bad. It's a tool. We can get more done. We can sprint if we're talking about work or exercise or anything like that. And I think one of the things that you guys do really well is you put the stress in the right place. So I think what most people find, and I was guilty of this too when I first started working in the typical work environment, as an Excel monkey, you know, surrounded by cubicles and busy people, where it's
Excel monkey. Did
Excel monkey.
I think I just got tagged.
But, so because you know you're going to be there for 10 hours because you think it takes that long to do it, you kind of procrastinate. You're checking the scores, or you're going shopping online or something because you know you're working all day and you're kind of stressed because you know you're pushing off the real work. But then you find if you start to manage that better, if you imagine that when you're working you're being chased by a lion, all of a sudden it doesn't take you 8 hours to check your email and respond to it over the course of the day. It's like 20 minutes sitting over there, which allows you to get through all of that stress, which you can use. And then the rest of the day you can be present, you can have conversations, you're not thinking about like ping, ping, you know, and constantly responding to it. So it's
really good.
It's about managing that so that you can be more present.
Yeah, so we're each going to tell one kind of inspirational story that kind of changed us and kind of directed the way we look at ourselves and health. For me, it's the first one that comes to mind is the one that always kind of makes the hair on my back come up and I get a little tingly. So I was in Pushkar, India, doing a bunch of yoga, right? And I was so cool. I was so cool. I was so holy, you know. It's like you're in that place.
Could you demonstrate? Just to like give us the visual.
Oh, it was just like, I do yoga, I'm better than you. right? That,
Boom.
right?
Were you wearing like linen pants?
Oh, I
Pants
was
on,
dressed like
Wow.
that guy, and
Yeah.
all of it, right? Like I was so like righteous and like high on like my accomplishments. Like, oh, my friends should be here. This is so liberating, right? I'm doing yoga because I can afford to be doing yoga while everyone else is working. You know, it was just this privileged position to be in, and I was feeling so spiritual, right?
I've got the visual. It's good.
Huh?
Thank you. I needed the visual.
Yeah, because it's these places that we go on in our path where we think we get to some exalted place, and then life just kind of like says hello, right? And then I was walking out onto the street, and there was a lot of leprosy in India, obviously, and there was this one leper. I'm gonna put my tea down for this one, who was missing one arm and two legs. And so someone had sewn a leather pouch for his torso, his trunk, and one here, oh no, this one was just empty, and then this one had a leather pouch so that he can drag himself along the dirt road to get around, right? And so I look at this guy, I was like, whoa. And so he's like, and he stops and he starts like kind of singing this song, and then he starts going again, and I'm like, my heart goes out, right? And so I walk over there in my like exalted, benevolent state, right? And I like pull I pull a rupee out of my pocket, and I'm like, here you go, man, right? And he looks up at me, and these eyes were just glowing with light. And he smiles this smile that just pierced me. And in perfect English said, "No, thank you, I have already eaten, but I think my friend over there might be hungry." And just signaled with his eyes.
Oh.
And I just collapsed. I started crying because I had never seen such humanity. Right? Here's the person who's like the most deserving person of my charity that I've seen in my life, who's more human than I could ever hope to be, right? It was just this, I've got a lot to learn, right? And it stunned me. It put me on the floor, and it changed my life. Like I can't be cooler than anyone for doing yoga. You know what I mean? Like, who the hell do I think I am? Look at this God, this living like example of truth. I mean, Christ, or whatever you want to call that energy coming through this amazing individual, and it just pulled me in and stayed with me every moment of my life. And that was really impactful for me.
That's so profound, Pedram. I think we can all relate to that, that grandiosity that we develop, like that self-importance, getting big for our britches. And then when you have a moment like that where you're so humbled by another person's grace, that man had so much grace.
So much humanity, like the definition of humanity, what makes us great, it was just like, wow, that is something for us all to learn, right? So,
and he was so generous to say, thank you so much, polite decline, but I want actually this other man to receive.
And here I am, and here I am thinking that my money, right, this material thing is going to be the solution to this person's problems with my set of parameters that like make the world okay, right?
And then maybe it would almost kind of complete the circuit for you, so you wouldn't have to continue to internalize this anymore.
Yeah.
You've now completed the transaction. Oh, transaction. I owe you something. You just gave me something. Now I get to go on.
Thank you. I feel much better about myself, right?
Yeah.
And in that moment, in that declining of my money, he showed me that he was more rich than I could ever be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And he was abundant. He was infinitely full. Right? And I was just like, oh man, I got a lot to learn.
It makes you realize how backwards things are.
And how we think about what people need and how we can be of service to them through material means when it's really this. Right? It's just, that when God speaks in very loud ways at different times in your life when you need to hear it, that was a good kick in the teeth for me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. You shared the gift. You paid it forward.
He paid it forward, man. I just paid for the plane ticket to bring it here. Yeah, I mean, we pick these things up, and they're for us to carry through and share. because somewhere, somehow, someone might be impacted by that message. I mean, as greatly as it impacted me, why would it stop here? Because those gifts keep given. That rupee gets spent, right? But that lesson, that purity, that power of that message is just eternal, right? And that gift is something that is something to not be taken lightly. Any spiritual gift in life is not to be taken lightly, right? Because it's not for us, it's through us. And the sooner we get out of the way, the sooner those gifts can continually go through us. And we can spread grace by losing our self-righteousness, our own sense of importance.
Love it. Love it. It's also a yummy juxtaposition of pain versus suffering, and how, you know, if I saw the man that you're describing who is walking with his arm, and like I feel his pain, like I feel the empathy. What the story that you shared describes how he's not suffering. Like he's not sitting there thinking, poor me, when am I going to get my next rupee? He, you know, it's inside, like the locus of control is internal. He's choosing not to suffer, even though I imagine he has a lot of pain that he's working with.
And that abundance consciousness, because if you're in scarcity consciousness, you're like, yeah, give me that rupee, right? God will always provide rupees to him when it's time for him to eat, and when he's hungry, the food will arrive. And it might not be in the form of a rupee, it could be a samosa, because he doesn't actually need a rupee. You can't eat a rupee, and we learned that in the Holocaust, right? People who had all this gold, you can't eat the gold. You'll trade all your gold for a bowl of soup, because it's the food. It's the rupee is an abstraction, a cultural abstraction that we've created, right? But what we really need is food, water, shelter, love, right? And we're so stuck in the abstractions that we stress about things that are not actually real. There are human creations that point to real things, but don't mistake them for the real things.
Well, it all begs the question, what makes you feel rich? There's a very big difference between being rich. I mean, just look at where we are. I mean, but what I found is that, you know, having money thrown at you or having a lot of it doesn't actually change anything. In fact, and we were talking about this a little bit before, getting to that island, that destination, you can be even more depressed once you get there when you realize that none of this made you happy and now you're kind of lost. But if you want to feel rich, I think there are very few things that can make you feel better than great food. You know, so if you want to feel rich, then bring this back to the conversations we had yesterday about the $1 eggs from Walmart compared to the eggs that come from the shiny, bright-eyed farmer who's so happy to give them to you, which I mean, you feel it in your heart when you meet these people. Like this is love, right? And when you eat it, it nourishes your body. So to me, I don't think there's much that makes you feel more rich than eating wonderful food, and so he is rich.
Yeah, and that wonderful, that is God's bounty. That is Earth's bounty. It's coming through. It's like everything that's beautiful in our world comes through the natural world, and it's for us. It's who we are. It's how we evolve. So all these abstractions and the Monsantos and all these, you know, all these people trying to build a Death Star, right? That's the distraction to keep you unfocused from Pachamama, right? From the spirit of grace and earth and whatever you want to call that energy. I mean, we all have different words and names for that, but it's that grace that moves through us because it's the currency of life, and that's where the medicine that you were speaking of, I think, comes from too.
Can you define Death Star?
Sorry, Star Wars. So,
did you just go all guy on me?
100%. 100%.
Okay,
I
please.
can't not make a Star Wars
for the women
metaphor.
who
Women can enjoy Star Wars.
Yeah, 100%.
Not at the same rate.
Not
Can
the
we
same
agree
rate.
on that?
Okay.
That's
Not
fair.
But I think we're annoying enough about it that you've all probably watched it because you're like, damn, you just won't stop talking about that
Okay,
crap.
would you just define Death Star
Okay,
for
so
those
the
of us
evil
who don't
emperor,
really know?
Dark Lord, wanted to control the galaxy, so he created a false, like a battle station that looked like a star. They called it a Death Star, so they could control and subjugate all of the life in the galaxy and have this overbearing control. And they probably controlled their food supply
They were probably GMOs.
They're probably GMO.
Because that's a good way to infect people and kill them.
And they probably controlled the media trying to tell you what's right and what's wrong.
But it had one chink in its armor.
That's right.
Ooh.
And the Savior, Luke Skywalker, found that chink and exploited it.
By using the Force and tapping into that life energy that we all carry inside of us. Boom! You don't like Star Wars now?
You're about to watch it.
You're about to watch it.
You don't think Yoda's a shaman? Come on.
Yoda's a shaman?
Okay,
Yoda, don't watch the new
Yoda
ones,
I know
by the
very
way.
well. I feel like I should apologize publicly to George Lucas now.
Thank you.
And Yoda.
We're going to walk you. We're close enough.
it's
We're going
me,
to walk
yeah,
you
it's
down there. I'm sorry. You were actually really good in your first 3 movies.
Yeah,
Death
the
Star.
first one's right.
Death Star GMOs. I got it. Okay.
Yeah, Death Star GMOs.
Okay, that's me, man. I'm drinking tea. Who's next?
Oh, that was good stuff.
I mean, I'll go.
Sure.
Go.
I'm tempted to kind of go into a lot of the stories of the patients that we've had in the movies we filmed, but I think maybe the best way I can honor the question is to talk about my own healing path. I used to have really, really bad migraines, and it's kind of what got me into alternative medicine. So it was a real gift talking about illnesses as opportunities. And what ultimately helped me get through that was a technique called EFT. I always go back to it because I use it all the time. It's just tapping on meridian points on your face and upper torso and going through events from your past. And that was all well and good. And it took care of the pain, but it always come back until I had somebody sit down with me and do a real, it doesn't matter if you're a practitioner of acupuncture or of Reiki. If you're a good practitioner, you're going to get people into places they don't want to go, right? I mean, if you have a good practitioner, you're not going to go into their office and not have to do work. They're going to make you do work. And
That's a healer.
that's a healer, yeah. And a good healer shows you that you're a healer too. So
Connects you to your inner healer.
but to get there, you have to go into this almost ticklishly horrifying, don't want to look at it kind of a place of your I call it the shadowy parts, the shadowy corners of. And whenever I'm doing that kind of work, I always know that I'm going to have to put my lantern on and start wheeling myself down the well. You know what I mean? And start looking around down there. And what it all kind of turned out to be, the root cause of these migraines, and my dad always gets bummed out whenever I've mentioned this before in front of large audiences, and but he was there. And anyway, it had to do with trauma from my father, and every dad's going to traumatize his child in some way, shape, or form. There's no way we make it out without doing something that is, I hesitate to say wrong, but something that wasn't beneficial to our child. So it came down to a very simple moment I never would have thought was traumatic, and she got me there, by the healer got me there by just asking a series of questions, just innocent questions, and then she finally got me to a sentence that I couldn't say. She's like, "Oh, well, that's cool. Say that out loud." And I was like, "I can't." And she's like, "No, you need to." And I'm like, "I can't." She's like, "Why can't you?" I'm like, "Because I think I might die. I think this all might come tumbling down if I say it out loud." So I love the idea that there's little bits of almost like little rotes or chunks of information that exist deep down inside of us that are manifesting themselves in positive or negative ways, physically, mentally, emotionally. And if we can find them, it's amazing, and it's kind of magical. It's kind of magical in a weird way when you can go and find it, and when you can be. She coached me into being able to say it. And once I said it, he did this, and it made me feel this way. And then once I said it, even though it was hard and it was really ugly, and I'm sure there's a lot of wheezing and snot and tears when I was saying it, my migraines went away. I mean, my migraines never came back. I mean, these are migraines where the reason why I started looking at alternative medicine was because my neurologist said, and he's one of the best neurologists in Connecticut because my aunts are all nurses. He said, "Hey, we've tried these 3 drugs. We're not to now start trying this preventative one. But you have to take all the time. It's going to might change the way you feel, but you'll get used to it." And I'm like no effing way. There's no effing way. I'd rather just have pain, And the pain was miserable. You ever have migraines?
I don't have migraines, but I've been taking care of people for 20 years. I know how much suffering there is.
It's not a headache. I mean, it's like a bone break. It feels like a bone break in your brain sometimes when it's that bad. So that's how I got into the traditional medicine. And once I let that go, they went away. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing from now on. I mean, this is now I need to know, because nobody that I know is using this kind of stuff. And they're turning to guys who are decorated doctors, this doctor, this neurologist, who's prescribing the crap out of this medicine. It's really changing the people's quality of life, and it's making, it's I don't know, it's putting us all to sleep. So it was just a really good, from a personal perspective, like learning how it works. That made me curious to want to really start looking into this stuff and making films about it.
Cool.
Well, you found your calling in your deepest trauma.
Yeah.
That's profound.
Or the deepest one that I found so far. I'm sure there's probably...
The journey continues.
You have an infinite supply of material.
And we talk about belief versus experience. Like, you don't believe in alternative medicine. You experienced its benefits. And I don't even want to call, I don't like the word alternative. Natural healing, right? And you experience the benefits. So it's not like you need to believe in anything. It's like, dude, I had migraines, now I don't. This has changed my life, which makes you a real ambassador for it versus someone who's just talking about things that they don't own. Right? This is your life. This is your story.
When people ask you, like, why do you do what you do? A lot of times it's hard to even say why, and I think that sometimes that's the way that you're doing the right thing, because it's just fulfilling so many things that you've always aspired to be an ambassador for, like you said, that you can't really say any one thing. But that's like, it's amazing to be able to talk about this stuff from personal experience and having gotten over an illness. That's definitely great. And it made me, I don't take it for granted. I think about it all the time. I mean, being migraine free is one thing, but having a mission and a purpose in life is another.
It's so profound. I mean, coming from the training of a conventional physician, I was taught to use those migraine drugs, right? Here, we're going to change your brain chemistry for the rest of your life. You're going to take this pill every single day. It's going to change your serotonin levels. It's going to affect your liver. And you didn't want to sign up for that.
No.
Or we could change your brain chemistry by working on the trauma that is the root cause of your physiologic change leading to the migraine. How beautiful is that, to go for the root cause rather than masking the symptoms?
Well, because then you have other side benefits, like, oh, my migraines are gone, and also, wow, I don't mind speaking in public anymore. That's weird. Okay, so that's new. What else is there? You start finding these things that are just unlocked. Like, how come I used to fear it like that? I just went up and talked to that girl at the bar. I would never do something like that. Like, rejection fears are gone. So, like, all kinds of things get unlocked with the pain. So, I mean, that's nice too. You're handling a lot of things.
Root causes are often like that, right? I'm sure you found this. They're the small hinge that swings big doors. I love that aphorism. I think it's so important that we all learn what those small hinges are. I'm so glad you found yours and that you're giving your gift to the world.
It becomes kind of addicting when you start knowing that you have. It's so empowering. I mean,
That's true.
And also, you just realize there's this whole universe that exists within you that you never really knew was there or tried to really access or interface with. So it makes life so much richer.
When you realize that you can feel better, you also at the same time, or maybe a little bit after that, realize that you can do more. And that's the cool part. And that's where the real change comes, and it changes your entire life because you feel that empowerment.
You bit into that, right? So you're now the alchemist. You learned how to turn lead to gold. Right? And you learn that health is an inside game. Right? Like, no one from the outside can fix me better than me finding where I'm getting in my own way and unlocking my inhibition, my impedance to the flow of, like, this thing called life. Right? And then you're always working on your health, because your health is predicated on where you've parked your consciousness and who you are. Right? And that moves. Because 5 minutes ago, the universe was somewhere else. And now if we didn't move with it, we're suffering trying to make the world fit to a vision that it was 5 minutes ago. Right? And so for us, it's constantly growing. Constantly engaging. So you're on the magic carpet ride. You keep going.
I love this. I love also that, it's not that we're saying you have to go to India and really see dirty. A leper to really connect to that grace and that desire, like being driven by desire. You also don't need to spend 10 grand on seeing the best neurologist. Like, there's a way to work with natural healing that is nowhere near as expensive as Western medicine. And it, not that Western medicine is so evil. There's a time and a place for it.
Absolutely.
But it sure wasn't working well for you. Didn't have the answers. And that's where I think natural healing really comes in. When you don't find the answers, you try that first, you're being responsible, but then there's this gap between how you want to feel in the world and what you're getting from the neurologist or whatever your personal migraine is. You know, maybe for you it's weight gain, maybe it's not having much energy or feeling like, you know, you can't sleep through the night. Whatever it is, I think it's this important message that we've got to decode.
Yeah.